we all know that fact checkers and the whole fact checking process on Facebook and Twitter is just hypocritical. It's just left-wing voices getting to censor right-wing opinions, and they never really do it to their own side. So PolitiFact, I think about a week ago, censored a Candace Owens tweet where she basically just stated that Joe Biden is not the president-elect of the United States, which is completely true. Mm-hmm. And yet PolitiFact put a false rating on her, I believe, her tweet. So Candace Owens appealed that. She got basically, PolitiFact just said, oh, yeah, we were wrong. I guess we'll take it off, which is just ridiculous that they have the power to just do that if they're completely wrong. No consequences. So that was a big win for conservatives. Candace Owens got PolitiFact to back off. But also, about 2 weeks ago, Owens announced that she's putting together this really, high-powered team of lawyers to go after Facebook fact checkers for defamation suits. Basically saying, you keep fact-checking my opinions as false. Mm-hmm. And you're not doing this fairly to the other side, and you're just defaming my character. You're saying that I'm lying about everything when really these are just opinions, or maybe you're just selectively choosing. We all know how these fact checks have worked. They've tried to pull quite a few things on the Western Journal before.
One or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of times. So I just wanted to ask you guys, so this is a pretty big deal. What Candace Owens, she got a big win against PolitiFact. She's putting together a team of lawyers to go after Facebook fact checkers. Do you guys think that this is kind of the beginning of the end for fact checkers? That, they might always be around, but they're not going to have the same level of power that they do now. Because until this example, we haven't really seen this much fighting back. This much of conservatives fighting it back against these fact checkers.
I don't think it's the beginning of the end, unfortunately. I do think that what Candace Owens is doing is great in the sense that, as a trio of comic book nerds, we've all heard who watches the Watchmen, or yes. who fact checks the fact checkers.
Yep.
Which, without going into fact checkception, the idea that you have to continue to do that is kind of absurd, but almost necessary at this point because of how weaponized the left has made fact checking. Like Candace Owens mentions, it's not about who said what in terms of what's actually factually correct. It's kind of boiled down to what conservative opinion can we try to take down?
Yeah,
it's become that. It's not fact checking in the most literal of senses anymore. It is this conservative person said this thing. Yeah. Here's one little angle of it that's disputable. False.
Yeah. Right.
That's what it's become. I do think there is something to be said where I feel like there's a lot of things that conservatives kind of just ignored during the culture wars, like kind of, earlier this millennium, 2000s. Yeah. I'm a lot older than both these guys. So it does feel like there's a lot of stuff that conservatives just kind of let, they didn't think it was worth fighting over. And a lot of pop culture stuff. That's why leftism is so pervasive in pop culture. Yeah. And I do wish, and it feels like very quietly, leftists kind of hijacked the idea of fact checking.
Yes. Yeah.
And it just, I wish conservatives would have done a better job kind of not letting that get away from them, because that has become a very potent weapon for the left.
Yeah, it's become like a contextualization game where you can contextualize out your opponent's idea. It's just, instead of, it used to be, at least from what I remember, thumbing through newspapers when I was too young to read them, it was, a claim about a number of something, like a number of vaccine doses or a number of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, so-and-so said something on the campaign trail to that effect. And they were like, well, actually, no, this is how it went down. Or, no, this is what the actual number is. Mm-hmm. And that was a fact check. Now it's a page-long article about, well, maybe the claim isn't necessarily wrong, but this is mildly racially insensitive, so kind of just a roundabout dispute through context,
Yes.
but not disputing the actual fact of the matter. It's not fact-checking at all.
And then labeled false.
Yes.
Yeah.
Based on that.
And so I think to your point, Michael, or to your question, I guess, is it's not the beginning of the end for fact-checking, but I think it's certainly going to, if Candace Owens can see success with these lawsuits, it is the beginning of the end of their influence. Because I've said this a couple times on the show, and I still believe this to be true. I think, unfortunately, the trick of the trade in news is to run the most bold headline imaginable as big as possible, and to run any retraction or update as small as possible in the margins tomorrow. And so I think unless we get this big headline of, Candace Owens defeats fact checkers, here's what happened, they're not going down.
And I think one of the biggest problems with this whole thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that they claim to be independent fact checkers. And that's what I'm talking about, is the independent fact checkers that places like Facebook and Twitter call in, and then they're supposed to give these neutral, unbiased fact checks, when in reality, it's just like you talked about, it's just playing all these different games and contextualization stuff. So,
yeah, I do think one thing tying this a little bit back to what Andrew talked about earlier with like Trump's kind of theatrics, I do think one really big benefit of just the Trump brand, whatever that encompasses, is sort of like it really exposes these fact checkers, these leftists, and how kind of loony they really are. I may have just not seen them before, but I swear I don't remember seeing as many partially false fact checks as I have in recent times, where, I'm sorry, but a fact is either fact or false. Like it's there's not really a gray area if we're just talking facts, and seeing them kind of go to these lengths. I am appreciative that Trump has helped sort of expose these leftists, these far leftists, and especially when it comes to something like, especially like Twitter, seeing like basically Trump basically can't tweet right now without getting this fact is disputed. And again, that's another thing. This fact is disputed. So we're not saying it's false. We're just saying it's disputed. Like, what does that mean? Come on.
It's beyond parody at this point. I think in that way you're right. Like, Trump is the sword that cuts both ways. Like, for every complaint that I have as a more traditional conservative about this president, he has uncovered so many incredibly important things when it comes to the left's control of culture and politics.
He's opened the door for the Republican Party to step through and to finally be able to fight back on cultural grounds, be able to fight back against accusations of racism and stuff, I'm sure we all remember back when politicians would just kind of shy away when they were called racist. Of course. And that's not going to work. And so he's opened the door. We'll see if Republicans can capitalize on that in the coming years.
They better.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samantha, and I'm the community manager for the Western Journal. We've really enjoyed recording WJ Live these last few weeks, and we have some exciting news.
We are now on Apple Podcasts, but we need to ask you a favor.
In order to equip even more listeners with the truth and fight against big tech,
we need to get more subscribers and reviews.
So please, go find WJ Live on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Oh, and tell them you want to see more of me on the podcast.
Thank you for helping us out. And don't forget that you can catch a new episode of WJ Live every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube and now Apple Podcasts.